Namaste, everyone. Today,
Namaste.
today we are bringing you the 11th episode of PodAlchemy. And me and Nadia, we were here just talking, and we feel like it would be important to bring you um, the themes that we are um, identifying in our life as the eclipse energy is anchoring right now on Earth. And I would like to start by briefly explain that this particular solar eclipse is happening in the axis of Aries and Libra, which involves themes of self and others, the balance act, but also because it's going to be a solar eclipse in Aries, actually the focus tends to be more towards self-determination, uh, self-actualization, um, integration of reality onto self, and not so much the balance act to others. That would be the consequence, but it would not be the focus point. And then it's also important just to tell you that this episode usually goes live 1 week after, but the themes of the eclipse, what we feel right now, anchoring, those are going to be brought to the consciousness, and we are working with the energy on to the future. So even if you're watching this 1 month later after the eclipse, it will still be relevant because it's these discussions that we are having live, they are going to be affecting the collective consciousness for months to come. It's actually, once you have contact with the energy, you bring it to consciousness, you identify the core wounds, the themes, the mistakes, and then you can um, kind of like do the energetic upgrade and then change your reality as a consequence, or just maybe not change, just integrate that feeling, letting it sit with you and actually release that feeling. That's the work, that's the alchemy that we all go through with energetic work. And what most people really don't get it is that energetic work will have ramification for the time to come. It's not instant pill that gets transmuted and you're healed out of a sudden. Nadia, I don't know if you want to say anything, or should I continue talking
Please
about?
continue talking on it. I think it's interesting, and it's just always so interesting for me. Maybe I just quickly say that and give the word back to you. To go through the feeling process. I'm very much the feeling person when it comes about those things. And then when we talk, I literally exactly have those points which come up that Salome then mentions again. So it's very interesting to have the theory to the thought and feeling process that I'm going through as well. And I think it's important, especially the part that it's not just on the eclipse day or anything, and it's not going to be the end of the world or whatever. It's just going to be a major impact where the veils are much thinner. And it will, it's like a medicine, a strong medicine that we get. Depends how much we take of it and how conscious we go into it, and then it works it does its charm, or it works through the system weeks if not months later.
Exactly. And you do have then the opportunity to choose um, to act according to what you integrated during the eclipse. And that's how then you will start to change the outer environment. To continue briefly touching upon the themes of the eclipse, it's focused on Aries and self-determination, self-actualization. Um, and we do have the conjunct of North Node and Chiron. And I want to touch upon that because the North Node represents where our soul needs to go. But the North Node is not really emotionally where we are at. It's not what we are used to. We by default come from the south node. The soul is used to habitual patterns, to ways of behavior, to conditioning of the south node. And so when you start to contact with the energy of the north node, you will feel a lot of resistance. You will feel out of comfort zone. There are blockages that you will feel in your energy field. So it's like this feeling of, this is where I need to go, but I don't want to go this way. This is how we experience the energy of the north node. It looks foreign to us. It looks like a mistake almost, right? It looks like, what am I doing? But
It definitely applies to me.
no,
Yeah.
but there's this inner calling, this cellular knowing that, no, this is where I must go. It's very important really to get this straight. The north node will not feel comfortable, will not feel right, will actually feel wrong, but wrong because of our trauma and past mistakes, because it's the lesson that we need to get. It's the change of values also, because again, the south node, the nodes, they represent a compass of values. It's the north node is the like the stars, right? Like the bustle, the compass that is anchored towards the north node. It's where our navigation needs to go. But the south node represents the land. It's out where our security is. It's what we know that it's safe. It's the country we live behind, kind of. If we are going to take this analogy of navigation. And then when we have this north node, pardon, in conjunction with Chiron, Chiron is the wounded healer. And it represents where it hurts the most in our life and in our body is really where we hold our pressure points, where we have less discernment and leeway. It's like these automatic points that get pressured and automatically you get triggered. It's this if you were to bounce off, and how do you say, like this, do you know this thing?
Yes, yes, this elastic.
Yes, this elastic, it's as if like the Chiron would be like the maximum stretch of elastic, and then a little drop, and like automatically you get very reactive because you're
Contraction and expansion.
yes, and you're releasing all that tension. That's what Chiron to me really represents. But also it's true contact of this energy of Chiron, where we know we are really being squeezed and pressured, and we really feel so deeply the hurt and the pain. That's where we need to go. That's what we need to feel in order to get the lesson there, and then realizing, okay, what value do I need to maybe let go of, or change, and what am I willing right now to rebalance. Because it's very important with north node themes and Chiron. It will never be all or nothing. In each moment in time you will be able to do those compromising choices, but it will never be like, oh, I automatically changed the south node, I let go completely of the energy of south node, and I am now in my north node. It will be a process. It will be a redirection. It's degree by degree, really. And so it works really by approximation. And that's what we are being invited now to feel, especially with Mercury retrograde right now. It's more of a journey of going inwards. You will feel like there are a lot of blocks. You cannot really act so much. And it's frustrating because we are in the beginning of the new astrological year and there's a lot of fire. We are in Aries. And Aries is a fire sign. What does that mean? That there will be a lot of animosity in the air, an initiation kind of, and you feel like you really want things to speed up and move. You have contact with that fire. But then, because of the energy of the eclipse, there are blocks, and you will feel very conflicted, almost like you're being pressured onto old wounds. You still cannot really anchor the north node, where you need to go, and there's a lot of pressure building up from the fire of Aries, and you're being invited to go inwards through the Mercury retrograde. So it's a challenging time for
It's like
everyone.
it's everything together, and I feel like what you're touching upon, I think the key word is you're invited to. It's the key word. And it's not in astrology, it's not about that everybody actually does the evolutionary process they're invited to do at one given point. And if they don't, it will come back and back and back again. So there's certain people that don't know, they're not even getting touched by this constellation at the moment because they've either transmuted it or their constellation is very much in harmony with what's actually happening now. So it doesn't, it's not their topics, you know, like it's, if your placements are in such a way that you're actually in harmony with what's happening at the moment, you're not getting into this friction. You know, like if you have a lot of areas, probably it can be also both ways, that if you have the placement, but also it can be that you have worked through it already because your Saturn return maybe brought that up, or other times. And the invited is really important, and that's why when we live a life that we live in a remote control mode, like I call it, those things, those challenges get thrown at us and thrown at us and thrown at us, and we keep on ignoring it. So they just keep on getting thrown at us. But when we take the time out to really sit in it and go through it, and which is very unpleasant, it can be very unpleasant, but that's actually the moments when you accept the invitation and you actually go feeling wise and thought process wise into the energy of it, and then you can transmute a lot. For everybody something will happen, but you can also just bypass and ignore it. You know, you can bypass everything. So it is very important, and we can actually shorten the suffering if we go into it, even so it doesn't feel like it in the moment. And especially when topics like the wounded healer is like or like the Chiron is a very much an inner child topic, and whenever we touch the inner child, there's a lot of unconscious energy in there. There's a lot of we all feel inadequate when we go into the inner child because we haven't got the coping strategies yet, or wrongly developed coping strategies which don't serve us anymore. So there's a lot coming up, but it's actually happening. You should never take a decision during Mercury retrograde, but I feel that Mercury retrograde is very much putting you on the spot of where a decision is needed. And I think that's the goal of Mercury retrograde, like in which sign is it and which period of time, what other constellations are, what's happening. So every Mercury retrograde actually points, it's like an arrow showing to us what needs to be decided, what actions need to be taken. But very important not to, well, I really feel I can say it that way, not to do it during the Mercury retrograde, but kind of process it during the retrograde because it's arrowing on into it, and then act upon it. Also, I wouldn't act upon the things that come up through the eclipse now. It's kind of, you sit with it, you absorb it, you marinate in it, and then you act upon it later, because none of us takes very wise decisions when we're in a full emotion. So it's better to go a bit with a, you know, in the observer role, and then take the decision, which has hopefully caused enough pressure for each and every of us that we actually feel we will take action now. The problem is about it that then afterwards, after this whole thing is over, there's also a bit of a release and a relief. And then the human nature likes release and relief, and then you postpone or procrastinate that decision, which actually was like boiling up in you. You need to decide something, you know. And then the pressure is going down, and then the danger is that you're not addressing it. So it will come up in the next time. It will come up in the next time round. And that's what I feel is a very important thing. And it's, I personally, I can handle things which come from the inside pretty well. I'm super triggered when in moments like that, where I'm going in the process of the inner child, when the outside world is, because then I need a kind of a sanctuary. I need a place where I feel comfortable to process it. I need a home like Cancerian fourth house settings. My home is my castle. So if my home is not stable at that moment, that's where it's touching right now, it gets very, very, very hard for me. Like we also with the Mercury retrograde. So I'm sitting in this room now because the power is out and it's just too hot on the other side. I cannot do this, I cannot do that. In India, that means so many things. You know, my water filter doesn't work if there's no power. I cannot cook certain things. I mean, I have gas as well, but you know, like it's everything, the washing, the hot water, the water filter. It's 37 degrees at the moment. So it's all those things which really boil up. And when I'm hot, when I'm too hot with my menopause as well, then it's just my capacity to be in a to have like dignity and poise is kind of challenged. When I'm too hot, that's really challenged, and which is also good because then you get in the point of that rawness. Like I was really triggered with Salome because I was in this situation and it all came up, and then it's how you react to it. You know, I was very triggered by something she hasn't actually done. It's just her life situation and her being, the essence of her being triggered me without her doing anything, you know. And then in the past, I would have lashed out like subtly at her, like throwing little arrows at her and poison darts because I would be snappy, and I don't like that in other people, and I do not like that side in myself. That's something which I learned in my upbringing as a strategy, is like something which has been you know, which is part of the culture, I mean, in the family culture I grew up in. And then I just said to Salome, you know, you didn't do anything, but I'm just so triggered with you very essence, just you being, your life situation, like how you approach things, you know. And of course she doesn't like it when I say it that way. Of course she doesn't. It also will cause a lot of things, probably because she's a bit more delayed than me. I'm more in the moment. So like I say it and it's gone for me. With her, the process will come later about that as well. But still, it's much healthier to do it that way when you're triggered with something, even if it's not the other person's fault, but to say it in a as neutral tone as possible, because that clears the air and that gives the other person the chance also to know what's actually going on, what's in the field, you know. And then for me, there's no need to shoot those darts anymore. There's no need to attack because I've said how I feel. And I wish actually people are like that with me too, because just my very being, my very essence triggers people for certain things. And then instead of doing this hidden attacks, it's so, which also when we're in a good place, all of us, when we're in a good place, there's no need for this. We're not triggered. If I'm in a perfect temperature and everything is working and I've got all my pressure points are gone, I'm the most loving and tolerant person on planet Earth, but all those the pressure cooker things, they put you in a situation that you want to lash out, and that's so much Aries as well, right?
It is.
The lashing out.
Yeah. The Aries, and we did have Mercury in Aries. I even think it's now in Aries. It's retrograde in
Yes,
Aries.
it's Mercury retrograde in Aries, and Aries is also warrior. Aries is also Manipura.
Yeah. And it's that fire. It's that actually for me, it really works. Mercury in Aries. Natally, I have it in Libra, but the energy of Aries helps me in my communications to actually um, have more pay more attention to my to be more direct, be more
It's good
concise,
for you,
be more
actually, probably.
sincere. It's an energy, yes, during this period of
A bit less
Mercury.
diplomatic.
Yes, during this period, I've managed to solve a lot of conflicts in a very um, balanced way. I think the Mercury in Libra really uh, tied along with my people pleasing and conflict avoidant. It really does not work in my favor. With this energy, I'm being able to communicate and to alchemize a better energy for my communications. And that's also how we can work with cosmology, is getting in contact with an energy, and then developing this cellular knowing and taking into our lives. I definitely have realized that I can do that I enter in contact with an energy, and then I recall how I felt, how I acted, and I can slowly take it and transmute my natal chart. That's how it happens. But of course, it's step by step process. It's a situation by situation, and it will depend on your distance, how you have to be in the observer state to kind of like pick and choose the energy that you want to anchor.
And
um
the charts, like that you said, sorry to say, but I feel it's very important to say that the chart, our natal chart, is our natal chart, as how we come into this life as the beings we are, with the evolving point of where we are at this one moment. So you might meet people with a identical chart like Salome, like identical, like same time, place, whatever, born in the same hospital, the cot next to Salome, there's definitely some beings who have very, very, very similar. Everybody who's been born in the same hospital like her will have very, very similar charts.
Mhm.
But it then depends on the level of individuation you're going through, the process you're going through, how you evolve. So you can have very uninvolved, from any chart, you can have very evolved or very unevolved beings, and some people use the some traits can be toxic, or in a healed way that can be the polar opposite, that can be very, very beautiful. So which wolf do you feed as well? We feed which wolf on your shoulder, like in the shamanic thing, which one do you feed? You feel the light side, or you feed your dark side, and the level of individuation you're in. So to actually use this basic setup, or this basic predisposition that we are born with, as a starting point to evolve. And this is not, and that I find very exhausting and tiring, when somebody says, oh, but I'm a Leo, but I'm like this, like, and as an excuse. Yes, it's a explanation. No, it's a, yeah,
Predisposition.
well, it's an explanation, but it's a reason. How do you say that? But it's not an excuse, because you can transmute it.
Exactly. It's how I see it. It's a propensity, it's a predisposition, but it does not mean that you cannot change it. So it cannot,
No,
does not serve as an
I
excuse.
mean, it's nice to keep the golden side of a star, of a sign, like the Leo, for example, is very, very generous and open-hearted, but also narcissistic and very opinionated, and many, many other on both ends. The Libra is very, like, has this loving, it really cares about relationships and about harmony and peace. But the other side is also not very honest, you know, and people
Yeah.
pleasing, and then holding a lot of grudges because they feel they're run over by more dominant signs. So which one do you feed, you know? And of course, when you heal, you don't want to heal the bad side. You want to heal the good side. You want to transmute the toxic side. So
Yeah.
that I feel is very important, you know, that we're not using excuses, and that astrology is not used as an excuse for something.
Yes, and not as that's also like not as a I don't see astrology as a forecast. I don't see
Yes.
astrology as set in stone. I see I see as a guideline. I see as okay, these are the energies that I'm going to work with during my next year. These are the energy that I am working with this lifetime. But and that's why it's really important to get good astrologists that are not so deterministic because we are in a we have free will, but it's just that there are also limits to free will. And I really feel astrology as a science is it really has like a lot of power, but it needs to be studied with a lot of responsibility and a degree also of what is the right word? Um, it's because not everything is set in stone. I feel there are a lot of materialistic astrologers, and there is also energetic astrology. And I just feel that this branch of energetic astrology has not been around so much. There are a lot of books about the subject, but it's with astrology I'm really feeling it that it's less about the books, or it needs to be the books and the experience of the energy somatically.
And it also like what really helps. So that's especially how I work. I have an experience library in
Mm,
anything in my work as well, like in my guidance work. Like you have this experience library, like you have people that you know in your life with certain experiences, traumas, whatever, and then you see it playing out, and you have certain internal, not written down statistic of how things play out, and that will become more. You have like a library of experience. So I feel also as an astrologer, when you have more clients, you will also go like, but this constellation, this one, it worked out this way, and it will just become bigger and bigger. Just something I want to touch upon, and it to me it taps into that, but we've rephrased that before. It's this responsibility, this self-responsibility, not using things as an excuse, like this actually owning up to what we're doing. So it's when we do something toxic, it's not like an excuse to have this sign in that house, and oh, it's not my fault, it's not something I can do about it. And the same thing is like the subconsciousness and the consciousness. So if we do something and then it's really it's clearly a shadow, and then we say, oh, but I didn't do it on purpose, then it's like it's not owning up to what you did. You're not
mhm,
transforming that trait in you. You're not taking the opportunity. Again, like you said, you're not taking the invitation to heal something. It's an invitation as well. So if you get a feedback on some behavior of yours that is perceived by the other as toxic, and then you say, oh, but I'm so sorry, I didn't do it on purpose. Okay, that can also be part of the dialogue. But it also has to be an owning up. Oh my God, I didn't realize that it hurt you. And then a feeling into it. Where is this coming from? Why am I doing this? And it's this I'm following this she's a German lady, and sometimes I really wish you spoke German.
yeah.
It's like there's a couple of really good things out there, and she's like she's specializing in personality disorders and narcissism, borderline,
Mm.
and she's actually a profiler.
Oh wow.
And then she has this really spot on way of saying things. I forgot her name now. She has this really spot on things of naming things. Is like she said, okay, like you're drinking and then you kill somebody in a car accident. It's not like, oh, it wasn't me, it was the alcohol. You still, like with a judge, you're still responsible for it, It's not because you did something and you didn't do it on purpose or you did it subconsciously, you don't need to take responsibility for it. And that is also happening in astrology, with the people, some bypassing energies can enter in, like, oh, it's not my fault. It's not my fault that I am this toxic person. It's not my fault that I'm like this. And I experienced that a lot with fellow Leo. It's like, oh, but I'm a Leo, it's like this, of course I'm dominant. Of course I'm, they can turn into the narcissistic as well. It's like this excuse, oh, it's not my fault, I'm a Leo. Or the Scorpio, I also hear it a lot with the Scorpios because they have this real beauty and depth in the healed way, very mystic and very stingy and thorny in a unhealed. And there's, oh, but I'm a Scorpio, like even kind of taking a pride in your negative traits as part of yourself and excuse, like basically like a free ticket to live that side because it's your star sign, or it's like a free invitation to just behave in a certain way. And that is a very unhealed and unfortunately I quite widespread way of dealing with astrology. To me, astrology is clearly an invitation to grow.
Yes, to heal. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's really that you're referring to is using astrology as ammunition, and it's not supposed to be used as ammunition. It's really supposed to be a transformative tool to
Yes.
alchemize.
Yes.
To to it's an invitation from the cosmos to dance along with life, and unfortunately, yeah. Self-responsibility is really key, and self-accountability, and it's also part of the journey. I've been in places of my life where I would use the card of that would really tie up with the victim to me in my it appears in the period in my life with the victim consciousness, and so everything was wrong in reality, and I was such a poor victim that had no control over my situation. And then I really had to come to a place where I realized that I can retrieve the power back to self, and I can harness that power, and I can transform whatever ailments, whatever things are not working in my favor. I can use also that pain to alchemize into light. I can use the external events to teach me lessons. I can attribute meaning to suffering. These kind of like commonplaces, but all of those really help me step out of the victim, which does not mean that I'm completely out of the victim. And really, this actually goes to what you were saying. Are we and this is something that I really see in stark contrast with our lives, and something that I've identified as a pattern, especially when I was when I used to be kind of like a victim of my circumstances. But like Nadia here, and as we have touched upon, you really are in comfort like with feeling and these deep processes, and you allow yourself like to really go within if you are granted the opportunity. So, and I really feel how this, going back, how this eclipse and this Mercury retrograde is what's happening to you is that you're unable to build that castle right now. It is just like the universe is doing the reverse. Whereas for me, I mean, it's not that I don't do deep processes, but I just avoid the feeling. I really do. And what I used to do is either occupy myself or distract myself, or use like the food, the trash TV, the events, the job, like to over identify myself, my ego, with something other than, in order to avoid feeling. And so to me, my process has been, actually, I don't have a lot going on externally, and it's really hard to explain my own process during this time, because if you look to the external, my life is pretty comfortable and stable. Yet, like, I feel really the waves of changes within me, and it's really it's like I'm living without, I'm living internally. I'm not living externally. And that was exactly where then me and Nadia, we clashed today. And it was really important for her to actually voice her frustration and really say, like, you trigger me, like you're like I really feel it was like this lack of fire, this lack of movement, of action. Like, I'm here, like battling my life in all fronts, over, like really doing a lot, using a lot of fire, and there you are, like completely like watered down in your in your being. But I do feel there is equilibrium point, at least for me. Like, I'm not allowed to be swimming so much in the waters, but I'm also not allowed to be in the outer movement. And I feel that there's, again, as Nadia said, like I'm being invited to feel all that I'm feeling, and I'm really going deep into the inner child. And that's the next point that I want to touch upon, how the inner child is manifesting with this particular celestial time. And then this invitation really to feel, to understand, like what is happening, but not in a victim. Sorry. Please.
Yesterday, you said something very helpful to me. I feel that could be helpful to people. You know, when you have what is it? Yes, the South Node. Like you've touched upon it, but I don't think the way that you did yesterday with me. It's like where your South Node, where you come from. That's, you said it, but in a different way. It's like that's your modus operandi. That's where you go back to. So what is your South Node? I use myself as an example. Okay, my North Node is in Aquarius. 11. It's in Aquarius, and my 8th house, Scorpio house, and my South Node is in Leo. And the South Node in Leo means that I had a royal life before that. I was royalty, had a queendom or kingdom. And as what is my role? Okay, how do I see my role in this society? It's okay, you get the toxic queens and kings who just exploit their people, but I have this deep responsibility for society. I feel I need to bloody save the world sometimes. And it's such a pressure. I really feel I'm carrying the world on my shoulders, because in a place like India, it doesn't exactly help. And there's also a reason why I'm here, because it's really coming out a lot. It's this, I feel so responsible, especially for the animals here. I feel they're being treated in such a way, and I take it very much as my personal responsibility to help rescue whatever. But I go beyond of what I actually have in my resources financially. It really costs me a lot of money. And then I it's not just animals, it's also like a couple of people that I
Like
sustain.
under your wing.
Yes, that I have got under my wing, and I provide. And so it is this responsibility also my heart, and who sees that they don't have the same options like I have. I can actually do some job, but this job is not, in the sense that it is not a toxic job, but it's not what I really want to do because I'm actually jealous of Salome. I want to go in my inner world. I'm never bored. Oh my God, I just want to be, I just want to be with my thoughts, my books, my animals, but not navigating this world out there, but in a cocoon, you know. And
Mhm.
this is this where I'm coming from, and you're coming from. Where's your south node?
My south node. Okay, wait. Now I had this. I'm in Aries. Do you see?
It's
Like
very
it's
much me, myself, and I, you know, warrior also.
warrior.
It's like the sense of self.
It's my south node is in Aries, and in the house I don't like. I just know my north node is in Libra and in Sagittarius in the house of Sagittarius, which I think it's the ninth, right?
Yes.
Exactly, it's the ninth. And so the opposite to Sagittarius would be, I'm not good at that.
I'm also like my brain is actually not functioning. Yesterday I was sitting in the car and I suddenly had this, like I wanted to put the indicator and I put the windscreen wiper, then I wanted to put this and uh, I just suddenly didn't know anymore how the buttons work. The same thing with my language, right? Sometimes these days it's also a Mercury thing for me.
It's Gemini.
Sagittarian is a ninth Gemini.
It's Gemini. So yeah, this is so. It's just the Gemini. It's really like this overactive brain that you understand a lot. Um, and I need. It's the over. It's the over rationality. Like really immersing myself in choosing rationally things instead of following the intuition. I need to transmute that, and my life should be more about really intuitive knowing and less about rationality. Um, also more absorbed, like the Sagittarius is more about like these great travels, adventure, um, really like not seeing how the dots will connect, but trusting. And it's more about being in nature, alone, contemplative, whereas the Gemini is more like being in society,
Social
immersing.
butterfly, no?
Yes. And then the other polarity is like the Aries. And I really have this warrior, like me, myself, and I can do it forcefully. And that's where also this thing of over-identification with things that I did, things that I do, things that I buy. But it's just like this doing, and more I need to work towards the Libra, which is more about not me, myself, and I. It's like me and
Right.
others.
Yeah. But
I can.
it's just so funny how like we are perceived from the outside world, you know, because I have this overgiving side in me. I've set some really very, very, very harsh boundaries to that, you know. And I come across as very sometimes really unhelpful too, because I cannot afford to take on more, you know. You come across way more approachable there, you know.
Mm. Yeah, and this is also super important. And that's also where I feel we get really misunderstood sometimes. It's just because we are
Mm.
an amalgamation of energies, and we like there will be at a moment in time there will be a prevalent energy, and not necessarily will be one of our personal planets or one that is particularly healed. This is something that I really feel very strongly, that more and more as one heals, you
Mm.
kind of understand which energy you will use for a particular circumstance of your life. And you will harmonize the collective energies that you have onto one. So you will be kind of like very not one-sided, but just like you will be like a pointed arrow. Like there is
No,
this
it's not one. You're like aligned.
yeah,
It's
you're alive.
alignment. You're
Yes.
alignment with the divine will, divine laws. You are aligned. It's
Mm.
not one-sided.
No, but yeah, I mean, one-sided if you actually see towards the divine. You understand? It's like, yes, you're very consistent, very in integrity. But until then, we are not really like that. So there are like sparks of unhealed energies that will come out here and there. And also the way you are perceived, and this is another very important thing, it's the way you are perceived by the other will be highly dependent on also the lens that that other, like the particular veil of illusion that that person carries.
Yes.
but also your own veil of illusion, your own. And this is where actually the South Node ties into what I also said to you yesterday, which is particularly with regards to past lives. There is this modus operandi, this lens, like this veil that we have, and it's like we're here, but our habitual energy is not really in line with this timeline. So
Mm.
I explained to Nadia in her royal life is like her energy is still convinced that she's a royal and acts in accordance with that, and particularly with the Leo energy. It's not only that she's like this royal, almost these bad royals that would rule the world in
Exploit.
a sorry,
Would exploit.
that would exploit the people. No, like she with the Leo, it's the royals that are all about the heart and the generosity and actually are really loved and praised by the people. But so those types of royals were highly generous and were highly altruistic and also took a lot of responsibility on their shoulders for the good of all people. So they would take responsibility of all the queendom or kingdom as their own duty, their regal duty. They receive the power from God, and they have it within them to actually provide for the people and to maintain the good um, of that particular land. And so coming into this lifetime, we are not really no more in a regal lifetime. In the here and now, uh, it's not possible. There's not the means, the resources, the time, the energy to really be able to provide for or like to guarantee the harmony and the welfare of the place where you live. And I
Whole of
really
India. It's a lot of responsibility. Whole of India. It's
exactly no, and
1.3 billion.
yeah, but like with you, I really see how like really Nadia, and this was something that would come up frequently in our conversations where I would not see that. I don't have that lifetime, right? So to me it was so obvious that, but why do you take this responsibility? And I would witness Nadia really battling internally with what to do. I would see her, I would witness her inner conflict, and also like how um really the way and the lenses that color her patterns of behavior. And it's not only patterns of behavior, it's patterns of behavior, it's feelings really, it's emotions and it's thoughts. So all of that really colors the way Nadia operates in reality, and really being conscious of it is it does not, I mean, it empowers in a way, but it's only 10%. You have the unconscious battling and the subconscious. So, but that's why it's very important to start to have this in the conscious world, to start to have in your life people that know about this way that you operate, and that slowly you
And
start
there's
to make
also the judgment, in the way they operate, because I was a good queen or king in
exact
other life. I really considered myself probably a good queen or king. And I probably also went against certain norms because I have a lot of rebel inside of me. So I literally think everybody in charge, they're idiots, they don't know what they're doing. And to be honest, I really think it's that way. But it's like, it's really, yeah, but our world is not in a very good state. I think a lot of people would agree with me on that it's not exactly done in alignment and in an altruistic way, the way the world leaders are navigating it currently. But that's another story. But there's just this subconsciously, I feel I can do it better.
exactly
And that transpires, and that triggers people, of
that
course.
triggers. I recall we even have had a lot of conflicts exactly because of that. Um, I feel like actually it would be my North Node in Sagittarius and your Leo South Node, they would battle. Because then my Sagittarians and also my Libra, they are very like, yeah, but that's how things are. Like, what can you do? Like, or you can only change the part of your reality where you're in, and this would conflict.
And I would go like, how can I let this person suffer?
Yeah.
Like, you know, social worker, also like this wounded healer as well. I think I've transmuted the point that I feel I need to support everybody, but I want everybody to have the same chance.
No, exactly. Especially the
Yes.
ones you care about. Then when you do
Yes.
have like Nadia really has like this open heart. So when she starts to, it's not only the village, but then those really close to her heart really take a lot of time, energy, and money.
Yes.
Because really, then she really feels obliged to integrate them in her life as if like they were blood family. Actually, that's it, the soul family. And but the thing is, because it's ever evolving and it's more and more, and Nadia is just one being in a time and in a place where there's not really this, there's not a royal power around. That's
Nor
where
the royal funds.
exactly, there's not and so you're conflicted because
Very.
reality is forcing you, is really the reality, the material world is forcing you into something that your values, your way of seeing life and operating does not real does not understand, and it's in conflict with, you have a clash of values. That's what's happening. Your values are in clear dissonance with what reality is asking of you, and it really hurts because, and this is something that I'm learning through my own journey of healing, but it's not easy. It's really, it will feel wrong to a person when you're on this journey of healing and you realize that you have to let go of a value that you hold dear and that you actually really feel it's a good value. It's a value that you actually appreciate, and it's not easy. It's not, because it will feel wrong. You are abnegating, you are letting go of a value, or you're releasing a value that you see how it's so important and how it has taken you where you are, and it's a value that defines you.
However, you can still, I think there's two different ways, like they're looking at the value or to looking at is it my role to
Mm,
uphold this value alone, you know?
exactly.
Sometimes it's also maybe not even changing the value. Sometimes it's also like, am I in a position? Am I in a, is it my role
Yeah.
to take, to do what uh, by myself? Um, what I hold so dear and so high. You know, there's two ways, like either like there's two ways, the value in itself, but then
Mhm.
also, is it really my role to uphold that value alone in
In
this
this,
world?
yeah, yeah.
You
Or in
know,
this situation.
there's different values and different things, which then, and that's always in spirituality, that's the interesting thing, it then the truth is always a fine line, you know. Those things are very often also used as spiritual bypassing excuses, of narcissistic bypassing excuses, you know, like renouncing responsibilities, saying we're not responsible for this, not that. It's also a shadow, so it has to come in an aligned way, and it's so difficult. It is really a challenge to not be cheated by your own shadows, and that's why you need accountability partners, and that's why you need people who mirror you. It doesn't mean that what they mirror you, it's also through their lens, but it helps you to see yourself through another lens, which helps you integrate that. It doesn't mean that the other person seeing you necessarily is correct, because he also sees you through his or her lens. but it's very often a very good indication of it helps you personally see what's actually at play. It helps you bring the unconscious in the conscious, and only then can you transmute it. Doesn't necessarily mean that the other one was 100% correct, but they picked up on something which you did not see.
Exactly.
And that I find is like is like the true gold in thing. But that takes a lot of yeah, that takes a lot of devotion and the courage and energy. Like, you know, like you the biggest sign of love is actually when you take the time and the energy and you really care enough to actually point out to the other what you see, you know. And then by pointing that out, you will also go through a process, because then you will also get the response of how they see what you see. And that's an it's a never it's never stagnant, it's constantly evolving.
Yeah, it's true. Yes, and just quickly to actually finish, uh, I, I do feel that we are not going to have so much time to talk about it, but it's an important theme, which is the inner child work.
Sorry, you touched upon it and then I went into
No, no,
other.
no. I also feel like it's important. Like we can start this episode, and then next we continue to build upon it. I actually do feel that both me and you, we did not touch it so much in PodAlchemy, and it has been now becoming fashionable, and trendier. And it's not really inner child work. It's not really it's not really
It's not sexy.
it's portrayed to be. No, it's not sexy. It's really, and I can start by sharing this, because it has been the theme of my past week. I went back to Lisbon. I stayed with my parents, and suddenly I was no longer, 27-year-old Salome. I was 7-year-old Salome in a house that to me really felt like this not auspice, but just like really devoid of anything that I value. And this is how my wounded ego, like really, my wounded healer and ego, actually both expressed. Um, and I started to contact with these feelings of really like feeling completely alone, feeling really, it's my core wound. Nadia knows this, like the feeling unloved, unappreciated, unseen, like going back to feeling nothing. And how this team, so I stopped suddenly. I was no longer in my 28-year-old Salome. Energetically, I went back in time to that really lonely, dark place. And this was also like the forefront, I feel, for part of our clash, because when I'm in my inner child, I can no longer operate as an adult in the world. And what I really feel, that's why this work is so important, but really needs to be handled with a lot of responsibility, is when you're doing inner child work, I don't see how it is possible actually to maintain like a functional life, because you're highly dysfunctional when you're in the child. So I was there uh, for I think like 4 to 5 days, but it really tilted me off balance. Um, and I was confronted with feelings that I've been pushing under the rug for years and years, to exist, to be functional, to mature, to be responsible for my own self. But when reality makes it so obvious that you need to go back to the child to feel those feelings, to release them, when you are in the process, you cannot, I want to get your opinion, because you cannot really act as an adult. As I'm going into the child, I'm a child, and I'm a child in all my categories of life. So I feel I was a very prepotent, this word, like really like uh spoiled child, and everything had to be done according to my way, and I was very like like irresponsible really, but I would just get away because I was smart enough to wiggle the system. But anything that I said that I needed to do, I would not do. I was a procrastinator. So all these really toxic traits of the child were coming to the forefront. And I really feel it. I don't know how is it possible to be in that place.
The thing is, it's like a muscle. You train that, okay? Uh,
Mm,
it's I've done some really intense settings that I totally group settings that I've literally given away my power and my
mm,
sovereignty to a facilitator. I've given away my phone, everything, my right to leave the premises,
mhm,
to actually go in that process. So I've done quite a bit of inner child work in that way. But with a time, you can actually, and that's something that's happening more and more to me, I can be in total process and still be like my own guide outside. So this is like an ability that is like a muscle you train, right? You start off. The thing is, when you go into the shadow, or when you go into inner child, you fully immerse yourself, like you're gone, you swim in it.
yeah.
When I go into it, I still see myself from outside. I still I can put a switch when I need to function.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's also because of that of my placement, you know, because I'm a king, I queen. I cannot afford to disintegrate. It's not
Mm,
about me, it's about the kingdom, right?
yeah, I understand.
And so I have this response. I have a very strong sense of responsibility, and I have a very strong sense of like leadership and needing to be responsible for others. So I innately have this more, you know. But the
Mhm,
thing is also mm, it's becoming, it's really like a muscle you train. Um, Going to the parents' house is a very hard one. It's probably it's the royal test, you know. But
mm,
anything else, like the thing is, you need to allow yourself to go into something. At the same time, you cannot always disintegrate
mhm.
because it can be re-traumatizing as well. It can be bringing it up again. Can you hear Blackie? She doesn't like inner child work. She just goes off and off. So there's this ability you start to develop of being able to watch yourself from outside, even if you are very, very triggered by what's going on. If you're very, I'll just quickly go on mute. How can I make mute? Wait.
Nadia is asking Blackie to please well, Nadia is teaching Blackie to have some containment, as we can see. It's not only the inner child, it's also the containment.
Doesn't help. I need to physically go there, which I'm not going to do. She's very triggered by something.
Yeah, no,
Yes.
but I actually feel we can touch upon this next episode. I do feel the inner child is such a big theme that is probably coming to you in your own life also, in some way, because it really ties into the wounded healer, the theme of Chiron.
You just
Um,
quickly wrap up.
and and really what I wanted to say is that in my process, the inner child work is so fundamental because it really goes to the root cause of our core wounds, and to me it brings up a lot of shadow, but it also brings up a lot of gifts. So my the creative gifts are all also lurking behind the inner child work. So as much as I feel the part of disillusionment. To me, a big theme that appears in my life is the futility of life. Like it's everything is so futile. Anything really is worth anything. Why bother to move? Why bother to do things if really nothing matters? I really had this very core wound of the inner child, feeling that nothing really is worth living. But then I also feel that the other part of this, or like what is lurking behind this futility of life, is actually my connection to the divine. I actually feel that lurking behind there's the connection to the divine.
And
And there,
sorry, that's where you tap into. You're strengthening that.
yeah,
And then even if you disintegrate on these realms, you still got that connection here, which keeps you like you're still going here, you're going deep, but you're not falling through the ground, you know, you still got some basement and
mhm,
you hit rock bottom, but you're not going through the bottom down under.
exactly, exactly. Yeah, and that's actually why I do feel I need to have this there's a lot of feelings. It's really feelings of futility, that everything that I do is futile,
Mm.
even if it's responsible things. But there's this thing, and I really feel it really ties into my where my where my cut, my hole from the divine happened, and all my compulsions started to develop. And it was like really there's this threshold that I passed. So from child until 8, and then from 8 onwards, there was this cut, this severance, like this disconnection that I got from source. And that's where all my things, and really this theme, this ongoing theme of life is futile, life is futile. And as I'm going back in the line of time, and I allow myself to feel the futility that I did not feel back then, I'm allowing to navigate through those feelings, and I'm retrieving my connection to the divine. And that's where I actually feel there's gold, and
I,
there's creative potential.
I think
So
it's also herited, like
very,
heritance, like it's
mhm,
a systemic psychological heritance in you, like on the
mhm,
mother's lineage, mother's side, the
definitely.
female lineage, heritage, well, whatever, you know what
Yeah.
I'm,
Both of our
hereditary.
both our communication is impaired. It's Mercury retrograde. I was commenting this with Nadia. It's been a theme also, because Mercury is affected right now. It's not on the direct movement, and so it's normal that even if you are a beautiful, you have your way with words, and I think both me and Nadia, we are good communicators, but the communication is impaired.
It's
So
very
bear
bad.
with
Lucky
us.
doesn't have that problem. Her communication is spot on.
Yeah, and I think we finish with this one. We promise that we will do another episode really on inner child work. It's a big one, and it's one that usually people just it's sexier than it feels, definitely.
Yeah, because you actually are that inner child. And as a child, there's always this sense of powerlessness coming
Yes, that comes a lot to me, the powerlessness,
to
and then I just
everyone when they go in the inner child. It's this powerlessness because you're fully dependent on your parents. Like you do not have the feeling that you can actually do it in this world. You cannot, I don't have a feeling that you're a sovereign being.
exactly. That really happens to me. I really it's the futile, and really feeling trapped, and really feeling like I have no control over my circumstances. And the victim also comes there. Um,
And just quickly, just on that topic, when I did this one container where they stripped us of all the sovereign rights, like on the outside, to really put us in this inner child. And
mm,
there was this group of people, and it's so funny when we were forced to do certain things, and what came out in the individual one, you know, um, like we had to eat the food that was given to us, we had to be in silence, we had to do this, we had to do that, many different things. And the certain things didn't trigger me whatsoever. It was okay for me, you know. And some other person went totally crazy about that. And for me, it was the lack of freedom, you know, that I was locked into this hotel and I was not allowed out. Some others really thought that was pretty peaceful, you know, not to have to go
I
out.
love that actually.
Well, I like to do it if it's my own will, but the rebel in me, you know, came so much. Somebody who has been constantly on diet her whole life, she was forced to sit at the dining table and eat with everybody what was given as food, which was very starchy, not diet food, to ground. And like she was so triggered about that, you know, like the different things which come up, which also shows different things trigger you in life and put you actually back into this inner child, because however you grew up, that is conditioning you, you know. What is a punishment to me might be a blessing to you.
Yeah.
So it's very individual, very interesting, very deep, and very raw.
Yes.
And we touch upon that next time. Let's start with that next week.
Okay. See you next week.
Namaste. Have a beautiful Sunday. Bye.
Bye.